Is there a doctor in the house?
Doctor, you have a visitor in the main lobby.
Hello and welcome to today's Talk to the Doc podcast. We're going to break down some technology and business issues that might be holding SMBs back and hopefully prescribe some bold strategies to kind of help you guys break through. I'm your host, Steve the Dr. Meek, and the doctor is in. I'll be helping you through the visit with my usual fun talk. So let's get into a little bit of the topic. Today's topic dives into kind of some misunderstood truths. Kind of with all the buzz around automation, machine learning, data-driven everything, we kind of forget about the human brain and that, it's kind of the navigating emotion, trust, clarity in real time. And that's exactly why I'm happy to welcome today's guest, Dr. Joshua Wilson, founder of NeuBeFi. How are you doing today, Doc?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Glad to have you here. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself today? Get right into it.
Sure. I can give you a brief overview. So I grew up as a financial advisor, and I kind of did what I was told to do, which a lot of professionals are told to do, which is, memorize the scripts, become more qualified, get more professional designations, more education. And what I found was that I just kind of blended in, and business was fine. But one day someone came up to me, or was a prospect, and they said, Joshua, we Googled you and we found this graduation speech that you gave years ago. And we know we want to work with you. We just got a few questions about the business. And Steve, that was a big light bulb for me because I tried so hard to just beat people with, outwork and out hustle and out learn and out be more qualified, but realizing that people made decisions at a gut level, an intuitive level, that really got me obsessed with the science of connection, which when I was turned on to that, then that's really where my business exploded. I started being featured in Forbes and fastest growing advisors. And long story short, I ended up selling that firm, took over another firm, grew it and sold it. Then went back to school to get a PhD in behavioral finance, which is really the intersection of finance, so that left brain rational thinking, and that more right-brained, as we call it, intuitive thinking, emotional thinking. And so what I've done with this is come up with a framework where to help professionals that are doing great work really connect with people at the human level.
That's great. I think some of the hardest things are for a business owner, you're so busy keeping up with the day-to-day that sometimes you don't recognize that opportunity when it's right in your face. And it sounds like you have that mindset where you were able to kind of take a step back and also seize the opportunity.
Absolutely. And Steve, we're all told to build rapport. Yeah. We all know you got to build rapport, that sort of thing. But what happened is, when I first got into the industry, the average person that was hiring a financial advisor, and it doesn't matter this financial advisor, this is a service industry, is they would show up to the meeting and get the information from the advisor, right? So they were coming in largely ignorant. And so there was an opportunity with someone who was not educated about a product or about a service to build a relationship with them from scratch. But things have changed, especially in the not just the internet era, but the iPhone era, the smartphone era. And now people get a lot of information online. And so people are making a choice about who they even want to speak to, right? And so they're making these choices often not as rationally as we would like them to make it, right? So part of this is not just you need to build rapport. We all know that. That's sales 101. But this is, how do you actually scale that connection beyond rapport to where people are getting a gut instinct of, this is my guy, this is who I want to work with, even before we've taken the time to learn about your service, learn about your product, that sort of thing. And I think that, in this age of AI and automation, as the topic of the show is, we are in a mad rush towards efficiency. How can I run my business more efficient? How can I automate certain things? And AI and automation can amplify what you're doing and make it more efficient, and business owners should be looking for ways to do that. But those things actually can't connect with people. And so as we begin, if you're a business owner and if you're a CEO, you're a decision maker, you need to be thinking not just where we're at right now with AI and automation, but as Wayne Gretzky said, skate to where the puck's going to be. Right. And that is going to be that as we get more efficient with all these processes and automations, there will be breakdowns where human connection is required. So you've got to both be leveling up in your technology, but also understanding how that leveling up in technology is going to impact the human level and what you can do to create that connection, to not only offset it, but also differentiate yourself from the market that's just creating more noise.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. I don't know if it's the post-COVID world or the growth of social media, but it seems like we've got more ways to connect to people than ever, but people are still looking for connection. We're still looking for that sense of, hey, I'm working with someone that I can trust, is a real person, and all of those kinds of things.
Yeah, you make a good point there, and I'll address this by talking about the brain. Okay, let's get a little bit of brain science behind this.
Okay. I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I wish I had a brain, so I'll do the next best thing.
Well, you're doing fantastic without one if you've been going so long. So what AI allows us to do, one of the things is create content. So I'm just using this as one example.
Okay.
It allows us to create content much easier. So now you're seeing the amount of content being created is rising exponentially. And so the pitch to business owners is, you can create content a lot faster, and you can create more of it and faster and in your own voice. And okay, well, what you did is you just made the barrier for entry much lower, which means what happens? Well, you're not the only one hearing these pitches, right? So now all these businesses are creating more content, and not just businesses, but solopreneurs and individuals and influencers in your space. They're creating all of this content. So what happens when you walk into a room, Steve, and the only person in there is me? Who do you pay attention to? Me, of course. But if you walk into a room and there's so many people you can't even count them, do you hear all the conversations going on? How do you determine which one you're going to listen to? Because before it was just me one-on-one. Or if there was 3 of us in the room, okay, not so bad. But the more content that is created, guess what our brain does? Our brain increases its ability to filter. So now the same level of messaging, which when there was just 3 people in the room, and I have a big commanding voice, and so I can talk over the others,
Sure.
and so
never need a mic.
This competitive advantage where Steve was listening to me. But now when there's 1,000 people in the room, what used to be competitive now just blends in, because there's so many more voices, and your brain just responds by making it even harder to get through.
That's a great analogy. I love that. Now, at this point, this is probably a great spot to get into the vitals. I always treat this like a physician's visit. So let's get into some statistics if you've got some. And I guess as far as kind of the pulse, do you have any statistic or number we should be mindful of when it comes to kind of the current market reality?
There's probably several things I could probably talk at. I'll start big picture, because I know you're going to ask me several questions. We'll go a little deeper with each question. The first thing is that, Gerald Zaltman from Harvard, he says that up to 95% of our decisions are made subconsciously. In other words, that's before our conscious logic even kicks in. And so the way that I like to think about this, Steve, is that the brain decides before the mind knows. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean that you are at a subconscious feeling level, making impulsive decisions that are pulling you in a certain way, and then your conscious mind is going to consider those things and rationalize what it already felt. So remember, speech is not even in our conscious mind. Our speech is in our conscious mind, but the feelings and the thoughts happen subconsciously. So by the time that we have made a decision and I know what I'm doing, and then you say, Joshua, why did you do that? Well, I've now got to translate that into my conscious mind through my prefrontal cortex and arrive at speech to explain it to you. That's a big jump, right? So a lot of the decisions people are making, most of it is based on subconscious factors, not the rational factors that we think people are making decisions on. It is instead they are deciding subconsciously and then going back and rationalizing what they did beforehand. And so I think that, why does this matter? Well, AI and template and marketing are making everyone look the same, and it was hard enough to distinguish yourself. But now that we use large language models that are trained on the same data to all of us create information, that's actually making it faster that we all sound the same. And so noise has been scaled. More noise, scaling faster, which means there's an opportunity for resonance now more than ever. And services businesses, they're typically not losing due to bad service. It's usually that they're invisible before they get a chance to serve. And that all is rooted back to the fact that, hey, I've got all these rational. I mean, how many times have you heard that, Steve? Someone talking about their business, and it's like, I do this right and this right and this right. I know we give great service. I know this, but I don't even get the chance. I feel invisible.
Yeah, definitely. That really checks with, total nerd. Don't want to deny it, but a few years ago, I read, probably 5 years ago, I read this book on, cognitive biases. And it talked about kind of how our brain protects us and makes these decisions for us and keeps some things. And then kind of all you described about how you kind of subconscious makes the decision, and all of a sudden you kind of find the evidence that supports it. What you said there really speaks loud to me. Just, it completely checks with how I could see the relationship between those cognitive biases and decision making on, that new marketing vendor or an accounting firm or whatever it happens to be, that, you kind of like what you like quickly, and then you figure out the things that make it make sense for your decision.
Yeah, I mean, the thing we have to first start with is that our brain is lazy. When you're thinking about selling your firm, understand that your target prospect, they don't really want to think about you. And so much of what we do requires them to think, which is expending calories. It's very expensive. Our brains want to be lazy. We want to look for shortcuts. We want to look for familiarity. We want to look for patterns. And that's part of breaking it down. What I mean by subconscious is we're looking for things that are familiar, tribal signals. It's shortcuts. People make decisions based on shortcuts, then justify that with logic afterwards.
Yeah, mine's just because it's a walnut. So, it's not lazy, it's just underpowered. All right, let's talk a little bit about kind of the heart rate. What kinds of things matter to you, or let's say we're both kind of service industries. What are there factors or things that people can target when kind of when they're trying to figure out those decisions? What are buyers looking for?
Yeah, so I think as a business owner, that my vitals don't change. I mean, I'm looking in terms of revenue, wallet share, referrals, but I approach those a bit different.
Okay,
we're still going to come to the same end result, but the story is, how does the emotional side lead to this? Reminds me of, there was an article in Harvard Business Review probably about 10 years ago that got a lot of press, and it basically found that it was based on a study that found that emotionally connected clients are 52% more valuable than highly satisfied clients.
Wow.
And the reason I wrote that at first when I was reading through this, I'm like, okay, what does this mean? Yeah, I mean, there's a difference, Steve, in subjective versus objective. It's just like people can tell you, oh yeah, I would buy a product that did X. But what people tell you is not as important as what they actually did, right? But the data was there that showed that in terms of wallet share, in terms of revenue, in terms of referral, those who were emotionally connected were a little over 50% more valuable than people that said they were highly satisfied. So it tells you that, and we've all heard this. What is that saying? People don't remember what you said; they remember how you made them feel.
Right.
Something like that. I think this is kind of the basis of it. These clients, they stick, they refer, They don't haggle as much on price. So if you want better retention, better marketing ROI, and growth, this measure of emotional pull is just as important, maybe more important than just the bottom line, is how did you get to that bottom line? And it can also help you uncover, okay, if we're not getting these results that we want, where might we be missing it on a human connection basis?
Being a technology firm, we're extremely heavy on metrics, and so we have we have all kinds of metrics for tickets, for devices, for systems, and all of our processes. We have like our 7 deadly metrics that we focus on, but we probably track another 100 of those. And just thinking about what you're saying, I'm thinking about the entirety of the client experience. And I think we've got 2 numbers there, our NPS score and, the client surveys and stuff. But my takeaway from that is it sounds like, as far as that engagement, that relationship, that we really need to start looking at more of those types of connection things with our clients as well as our prospects too, trying to figure out the emotional side of it and not just the straightforward business process workflow side of things.
I think that you make a good point too, just the fact that you're in technology, because I hear people that are in highly technical fields think that because they're in a highly technical field that these things probably matter less. And that's kind of the thing is, on paper, I don't really think about I need X from an emotional level, right? I don't think about that. I think about I need my needs met, I want my problem solved and things like that. So it is operating at this level that's beyond the conscious. It's the conscious is I want my needs met, I want my problem solved. But I also want to work with people that I like, that I feel kindred to. And so because of this, I actually feel like that firms that are in these types of businesses that are highly technical actually have a greater opportunity to differentiate in the market with these things, because so many take the attitude is that's not where we can differentiate. No, the fact is it's like an investment advisor. I talk to investment advisors about this all the time. Okay, financial planning is formulaic, right? Now there is some amount of personal with it, but investment management is formulaic. Why are your investments better than my investments? We have access to mostly the same stock market and all these things. Is what's the difference between one and the other? Most of what you do, most of your value is commoditized, right? Most of your value, if you're a high performing firm, we like to think of ourselves as, oh, I'm so different than everybody else. I mean, you've got peers that do a great job too. Maybe you're the best one in your hometown, or maybe the best one in your city, or something like that. But better and best is a trap, because now
Sure.
You're just in a race of better. And it's like, I don't know how much you keep up with the news about all the different AI platforms, LLMs, like,
Yeah.
You're always hearing news about, well, ChatGPT is better at this now, and then Grok is better at this, and then Perplexity is better than this. And, oh, no, now ChatGPT is come back. I don't know. I can't keep up with all the betters, but I can tell you what I'm most comfortable with.
Yeah, there's been nuclear warfare around technology for years, where one inches forward, one comes back, and it's really tough. But and I definitely agree. We within our organization we have a couple of things, but we kind of have our no IT jerks philosophy, guarantee that we do that. We're kind of fun loving, friendly, all of those kinds of things. But if someone gets a bad survey score, we send them a packet of jerky, and then we talk about it internally, what happened, and it's kind of a big thing internally that we go through and kind of try and unravel what happened and what we could do better. But I used to always say that if we walk into one of our clients and the client says, "Hey, the computer guy's here," then we already know we failed. That if they're not seeing us as a person, if they don't know our name, then there's something wrong with that particular relationship. That we should take the onus on being better at that, so that they feel that connection.
Very thoughtful.
Now, as far as the next vital, let's talk about the weight. What's the strategic significance for leaders out there?
Yeah, I think that this one is a little harder, and there's different ways you can go into it. So I encourage people to experiment and talk through this. But
There's no wrong answer.
you want people, you want people to be tracking the emotional impact. And what I mean by that is how many people are saying, "I just felt like you were the right choice." That's a signal of magnetism, of market fit, but at an emotional level. So testimonials, intake forms, conversions, because that is what predicts trust and conversion, right? What are people saying about you? Is it just about getting it done? Because if everything that is about the quality of work that you perform, your margin of error is going to be very, very tight because it's very, very competitive out there. But it's like with you, you take advantage of the fact that one of there's two main points where you can really impact a client relationship, and that's actually the very beginning of it, right? How is that onboarding, that expectations are established then, and then if there's something that goes wrong, something that doesn't meet expectations, how do people feel about after that? It's one of the best opportunities to improve your relationship with your clients is how you recover from something bad. So it's actually, you actually think about that, frame it in your mind as, hey, every time something goes wrong, that's a rare opportunity we have to really impact this client. And those are some of the best testimonials you can get is, hey, I was with this firm for a year and then X happened. It didn't go well. And I told them about it. And boy, did they fix it above and beyond. That is a huge opportunity that they would have never known just how much you cared and how human you were.
Gotcha. So as far as the marketing side of things, what is your advice to leaders? I just kind of feel like we've kind of, things have evolved and we're all on social media now, and it feels like in social media, I'm not going to be that dancing plumber out there trying to influence a board of directors, but what's working out there?
So there's a couple questions there. So what's working? What's my advice?
Or maybe what's changed?
Consumer decisions have changed in the AI and social media era. People are overloaded with information and options. They default to what feels familiar and trustworthy. And that is deeper than just a familiar brand. I want to be very clear that when I say familiar, they say, oh, well, they're gonna, if you're a bank, they're gonna go to JP Morgan because that's familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Much bigger than that, right? There's an emotional familiarity with the trustworthiness. So we scan for emotional fit before we scan for expertise. And because of what I said earlier is more noise, right? When there was very little expertise, and I use this, for example, of me being in the same room as you, and there's two other people, we're all three competing with your attention. You can much easier have the bandwidth and the capacity to scan for expertise. But when there's a lot more people out there, there's a lot more competition, and they're a lot louder, and they're all talking more. That's the thing, is they're all talking more. Then what we're scanning for is not expertise, whereas we're scanning for emotional fit. If we check that box for that emotional fit, then we want to check the box for expertise. And I would go back to the example I gave you earlier when the people said, yeah, we know we want to work with you. We just have a few questions. They were going to, okay, he's qualified. He's got the tools. He's got the team. Okay, great. Right. Then it was checking boxes after they'd established that emotional fit with me. So I think that this is a rude thing to say out loud, Steve, but your brand is being judged in milliseconds before they call, before they click, before you get into a conversation with them. And so I think that firms that really depend on getting into a conversation, they think of that as the zero. In other words, this is where I'm starting from. Mm-hmm. That's not going to work. We've got to be thinking about the client relationship starting way before any one of your employees or you ever speaks to the client. That's what's changed.
I feel like there's some sort of biblical lest you be judged yourself kind of thing or something that fits there. But I really love that phraseology, emotional fit. Kind of my takeaway is I hear you saying that just doing more, just trying to satisfy the social media algorithmic gods isn't going to help you. That what people are really looking for is not volume. What they're really looking for is that emotional fit with them.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that sometimes we think of, to our own detriment, we think of social media and you brought up social media, so I'll discuss social media for a second. We think of social media or marketing, whether it be a video on our website or something like that, as a box that has to be checked. That somebody told me you got to do social media and that they had success doing social media. Okay, that's kind of like saying, well, you had this, my friend had success in professional sports. Okay, well, hold on. Just because we're doing the same thing doesn't mean we're executing at the same level, right? And so just because we're producing something doesn't mean we're producing something that connects. In fact, we may be producing something that's boring or irrelevant or really just shows people that we blend in. Most businesses, they lose customers before the first meeting because their message just feels generic or irrelevant. There's no emotional hook. There's no click. There's no call. There's no deal. Customers are deciding, I'm going to use a Gen Z term here, customers are deciding based on vibe.
Yeah.
Long before the logic comes in. So if your message doesn't feel like this is the one for me, they move on. And so a lot of content ends up becoming about myself. Is my firm has been in business for this amount of years, and my firm has done this, and we promised this, we promised that, and everybody promises, and everybody's been in business. And I mean, and by the way, you're also assuming that those things even matter to the client, right? All that, so we have shorter attention spans than ever, and everybody's got that stuff to tell us. So.
I'm having a self epiphany here. So I'm not really a big TikTok person. Just one of those platforms, cybersecurity guy. So I've always avoided that. But I don't quite understand the whole TikTok celebrity kind of thing. But on the other side, I would, as an older generation, I would make fun of the people, the engineers that I work with, who if I try to call them, they don't answer. But if I text them, they respond right away. Hey, what's up? What do you need? Kind of thing. And the way that I'm looking at them saying, hey, you don't know how to communicate with people. The flip side of that is I don't know how to create immaculate vibes, maybe in your term. I'm doing all these other things thinking, hey, I'm communicating, I'm being good, but I need to learn a little bit more from the TikTok people on how to create those vibes. Because that might be where I'm missing in my own marketing efforts or marketing message, trying to reach the people we want to do business with.
Well, I think that I admire your self-reflection, but I would actually, I'm gonna side with Steve, with original Steve, and tell you you're probably doing a better job than you think. So when we start thinking about platforms is a totally different thing. We want to be careful not to think of social media as TikTok or as marketing as social media, right? Because all of these are different channels, different outlets. They have different advantages and disadvantages. TikTok, I don't do TikTok. I've got several social media accounts, but for me, TikTok hasn't made sense. I'm not saying it never will, but I choose not to participate in TikTok either. So I think also, another thing to keep in mind is who you're trying to reach is going to matter. TikTok is highly Gen Z, and this is the way every generation. So I'm a millennial, so I am original Facebook generation. Facebook came out while I was in college, and my school was one of the first 10 schools to get it. So I'm a Facebook old student. But as soon as I remember when it came out and it was news, it was Facebook's open to the public. And we were furious that anyone could get on Facebook. And then all of a sudden you're getting friend requests from your friend's mom.
Yeah.
Oh, Facebook is done.
That's right.
and then a lot of us moved to Instagram. And so now Instagram is much more of a millennial type of platform, where TikTok is, a different sort of mode of communication is rewarded on TikTok. TikTok is radical authenticity, where Instagram is much more a platform of highlight reel, of the millennial, let me show you my best life and that sort of thing. And I mean, I don't want to classify this and say that Instagram is all millennials. Don't take this as a binary, but it's but the cultural influences are much more important. Whereas YouTube, there's a lot more diversity on a YouTube than there is on like a TikTok, for example. So just because it doesn't work for you, that's fine. But matching, hey, what am I willing to do? What am I missing on this platform? Is this platform even the right platform for me? You don't have to participate in all of them. And I think that's one of the things that mistakes a lot of businesses make is they think that, number one, if doing it is doing it well. No, doing it is not doing it well. It's much more better for you to pick one platform that's ideal for your client, where your clients are actually at. Because if your clients, aren't on TikTok, then you're wasting your time on TikTok. If your clients are on Facebook, fair enough, or YouTube, fair enough. But then how do I speak to those clients? I can't speak to everyone. That's the other thing, is I can't speak to everyone. And that's what most business owners want to do, is they want to speak to everyone. Well, I really want to be able to work with everyone. Okay, then you're unremarkable. If you want to work with everyone, then I will forget you. You won't even get my attention. We are hyper tribal now because we have so much information that I only have to listen to who I really want to listen to, Steve. So I'm looking for reasons to say, not this guy, not this guy, not this guy, not this gal, not this gal. So we really have to hone in on who we're speaking to. And so I tell people, try to speak to one person. Who's your ideal client? Give them a name. Clyde Johnson, who does this for this firm. He's a chief marketing officer or a chief tech officer or whatever for this size of a firm. He has 2 kids. I mean, get that picture in your mind and just talk to Steve and make the videos for Steve. But also remember that Steve is a modern person. Steve is not who Steve was 15 years ago before he had a smartphone, because that smartphone has changed his life.
Yeah, I guess in my head, I was thinking less about the platform and more about the how the message comes across. That it's like having the website that says trusted partner, but the digital vibe says something like middle school group project. Just kind of making sure that whoever I'm appealing to, that I need to be mindful that everybody is trying to figure out that right connection, that simpatico feel, the guy who's going to somehow be a best friend, and somehow we connect over something that we have in common. And maybe your idea about buyers personas is part of it. We definitely utilize some of that in our own efforts, but just trying to figure out that that there's more that we need to learn, especially if you're an older person, in an organization that's been around for a while. It's easy to have success at one point. It's hard to have continued success over many years. And I think that's some of what I hear from other people that I know who've had companies 20, 30 years like us, that, hey, everything was great. Everything was wonderful. And now things are still good, but could they be better? You're always trying to find that, what is that secret thing to stay relevant over an extended period of time, a la, Good to Great, or any other books out there that talk about that topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess from your point of view, marketing tactics, we've talked a little bit about strategy. We've talked about other things. What is your advice to leaders out there who are trying to tune their marketing or trying to figure out what next?
Yeah, so tactics. We all love to start with tactics, right? What's working? What are other people having success with? Unfortunately, tactics can't fix bad positioning, and they can't fix unclear signals. If you don't know why people choose you, then no ad or campaign is going to perform well, especially long term. Because what you're really doing is you're scaling confusion instead of scaling connection. So I think that most firms are so focused on the tactics of marketing and doing marketing that they forget to think about what makes them marketable. And so we end up just amplifying a message that blends in. We forget that first we're trying to win the war of getting their attention. And sometimes we take attention for granted. And I think that that's probably the biggest mistake that we make in marketing as far as tactics, is that if I do the right things or do things that others have been successful with, that I will have success, right? But there's a lot of things that people have done to be successful in this world that I've never was successful at, right? Tried a lot of things in life, tried different sports, and tennis, I could volley, but we're not going to play, golf. I read the book and taken a lesson, but I'm not a good golfer, and so
I sucked both times I played.
Well, you probably want to play with me, Steve, because I might make you feel good about yourself.
hey, that's our connection right there.
Terrible golfers.
Terrible golfers. Actually, I go for the comedic effect. I make the rest of the threesome. I'm sure I would make them laugh all day long.
That's the point of the game to me. Otherwise, it's work.
Comic relief, right?
Exactly. So yeah, I think that the big picture is that we tend to focus on what tactics do I do instead of what makes tactics successful. And we'll tend to blame tactics as tactics don't work instead of, well, we didn't execute this very well, and then let's get under the hood. Why didn't this work, right? If everybody in the neighborhood everybody else in the neighborhood, their house is 72 degrees right now, and mine's 90, I don't say that ACs don't work. ACs work, but there's something wrong with mine. And I think that's where we have to really start, is really where that strategy level that we like to skip, because we want to go straight to, what do I do now?
So your direction to people is, before you start talking about tactics, kind of take a step back and make sure you do first things first. Make sure you're not a guy shouting through a megaphone for hours and then realizing, hey, I'm in the wrong town. But hey, it's still a nice megaphone though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can have and this is, we have to be able to separate the quality of our services from the quality of our outreach, from the quality of our brand, from the quality of, when we think of brand, sometimes we think of, well, I give a great product, I give a great service, but that doesn't make it remarkable. Okay. So keeping business is different than attracting attention. And that's one of the things, is because we're so obsessed with nobody, we want to please everybody. And with this culture shift, technology has enabled us to be pickier than ever. Used to, Steve, when you were growing up, when I was growing up in rural Alabama, we only had like 6 channels. So if the president was on, your whole night was shot.
That sounds like the big city versus where I grew up.
Exactly. So now, with social media and with individual outlets, I only ever have to hear things that I like to hear. I can let the algorithm figures it out real quick. If all I want to hear is Republican stuff, all I want to hear is Democrat stuff, if all I want to hear is far right wing stuff or far right left wing stuff or anything, the algorithms will serve me up what I want more of. And so, so if you're creating content and you're creating ads or anything like this, you'll be able to get in front of people, but you can't keep their attention. You have to earn their attention. You can pay for the impression, but you can't pay for their attention. Paying for attention is very, very expensive. And in this modern world, if you can afford to be the person that pays the most to get a client, I could always help that person. We'll just throw money at the problem, right? But if you're trying to compete in a thinly margined business, or, you've got to be able to earn the attention, not just the impression. You can't assume that because you got the impression that you're going to keep the attention.
Can we take a step back to one thing you said that I really like as well? I heard you say something, and sometimes I can see where in our rush to kind of do marketing, as not every organization that isn't a marketing firm trying to do marketing is kind of like a secondary skill or whatever. But I heard you say the phrase something like how you retain clients is different than how you attract clients, which I really love. So what kind of initiatives or what things as far as strategy are you suggesting, or should I take away from that as an executive, a leader, a manager who might be in charge of growing the business, by great customer service and by attracting new clients? What advice would you give them there?
On kind of the putting of the three together.
As far as the difference between attracting clients versus how you would maintain your relationship with clients or outreach to internal clients, what kind of things do you think about there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if your maintenance with existing clients is broken, that's a big problem. If you're bleeding clients, I feel like there's more firms that are struggling to grow than are struggling to exist. So I tend to focus, frankly, more of my attention on growth than I do on
Gotcha.
service. So I'll speak more to my expertise,
Okay.
which is the growth. As I mentioned before, humans aren't rational buyers; we're pattern matchers. So what I mean by that is we make gut decisions and then we backfill with logic. And behavioral science explains why. It's story, tone, vibe, all that matters more than stats. So the job of a growth strategy is to align your brand with what the brain is already looking for. And so the brain is not looking for the features as you speak to them, right? It's looking to solve a problem. It's looking to solve a problem and to solve the emotional result of that problem, the emotional state that occurs as a result of that problem, or the emotional state that is prevented because of that problem. And so we tend to think about the things that we deliver in very rational terms. So I challenge firms to think about, okay, understand that we're really choosing based on patterns, familiarity, and that's not just at a feature level or firm level, but at a personal level. So what I encourage firms to do is if you're marketing, you need to do some deep discovery with the people that are the voices of your firm. And why do I say that? Because it's usually those voices of the firm's leaders or the leaders of sales or whoever it is. It can be different types of businesses. But understand what their voice is, what their personality is, what their strengths is, and how those different people come together to create this brand. What is, if your firm was a person, what would they be like? It would be like Steve in these ways. It would be like Carl in these ways. It would be like Janet in these ways. And by the way, Steve, Carl, and Janet, I'm making up names. I don't know if you have a Carl or a Janet. That would be fun.
I'm actually looking for a couple. So if you know,
if you're a very experienced Carl or Janet,
yeah, highly experienced Carl or Janet, you're on my list.
But what are those things that you have in common that can be part of your brand voice and still respecting your differentiators? But we tend to think in terms of what keeps our clients around, and those things that keep our clients around from a emotional level, from a relationship level. You can't sell those things by telling people. This is an important point. I tell my clients, and I realize how funny it is to say tell, but I tell my clients that you want people deciding about you, not listening about you. You want them to make a decision about you, not be told. We don't trust what we're told. If we're told something, then we're going to be, I hear that a lot. And the more I hear it, then if I hear it, how do you back that up? We care more. We're like family. All these generic things that people say. That's where story comes in. And having a grand narrative of your firm and the problems that you solve for people is it allows people to make a decision about me. So for example, I filmed a little short video of myself telling a personal story. And I'll use it with my clients as a teaching tool. And the whole point of it is you listen to my story. And so I don't tell them this. I just say, listen to this. Then I'll ask them, so what do you know about me? And they'll start listing these things. Well, you're very hardworking and you're this and you're this. And then I say, hey, how many of those things that you just listed off, 7 things that you know about me, how many of them did I tell you? Goose egg, 0. I didn't tell you any of those things. I told you a story. And then you processed it and you decided. I didn't tell you. So you walked away from there convinced because I told you a story that you decided that I was X. But it was also a story that you could have decided Y. You could have decided something different. Yeah. I'm not trying to be all things to all people. When you try to be all things to all people, you say generic things that you think everybody will like, but it just blends in. You say like, we care the most, and I come from a long line of, my dad founded this and he cared more, and we think it sounds great, but it's really just kind of boring and it blends in with everybody else. So we want to be able to say things that actually make people choose. And we're not going to be it for everyone. But if you can't be a little bit polarizing and let people not be the best fit for everyone, then you're going to be stuck in the I'll think about it category. And that's the worst place to be. Give me a yes or give me a no, Steve. Please don't think about me.
Yeah, sure.
Please don't.
That's all we can hope for in life.
Exactly. Because what happens is, we're busy, we've got tons of information, and it becomes, I don't know about you, Steve, but I open way too many tabs on my phone. And so I've got all these web browser tabs, and I just open another one and another one and another one. So if I tell you I'm going to think about it, that means I opened up a tab, and Steve's in it, and then I'm going to open up 20 other tabs after it, and you're one of 1,000 tabs. Why? Because I told you I was going to think about it, but I lied. I didn't mean to lie. What I meant was, if I was really telling you, if I really was able to process it, I would say, I didn't really feel it, Steve. So I'm going to have to go process it since I didn't feel it. Because I didn't feel it, I'm going to have to go process it. I must need to think about it. But what really is happening is they need to feel about it. They didn't feel what they needed to feel in order to move forward.
Got it. So it's kind of whatever an organization is, whether you've interviewed your people and know them, or maybe you've got together as a team and put together core values that represent the whole organization. The client's got their own belief system. They're looking for that pattern between the two organizations or between themselves and the organization where they feel like, hey, this is my impression of who these people are, which is exactly what I'm looking for, as opposed to, well, they showed me all these experiences, all these skills, all these other things that are exactly what I was wanting. They're coming to that conclusion as opposed to you putting that conclusion on them.
Yeah, the conclusion's about you,
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you ask me, why do you use this, whatever, I'm going to rationalize it. I may not say all these things that actually really, cause me to make a decision. And I won't get into all the science behind this, but there's some pretty intricate science that goes into understanding this. But bottom line is, the reasons people say they made a decision, they really don't have a great grasp of why they made the decisions that they made. They end up rationalizing, saying, well, they have great service. What does that mean? They didn't have a great service before you hired them. That's something you found out after you already hired them, that they had great service.
Sure.
You hired them based on something that wasn't their service.
So as a technologist, is there a way that for organizations, kind of going through this journey that, or maybe something leaders need to be doing about automation or technology to kind of assist with accomplishing whatever those marketing goals are for growth?
Yeah, I mean, I think that automations are the next step. AI agents and automations, and be able to take the things that I think we hear a lot about them replacing humans, and that's scary. But at the same time, everything that we have right now replaced a human at some point. Street lamp lighter used to be a job, and there was a big hoopla over this back in the day because people were losing their jobs because they were lighting the lamps and electricity was going to kill that. Okay, but every time we have an advance, humans end up doing less of that mind-numbing work, right? So we actually free up humans to be able to do things. And so I think with leaders need to be conscious that employees are scared of automations, of AI, of things. Why? Because if I believe I'm the top dog, I think I'm untouchable. But if I'm an average employee, I think I'm very touchable, and I may be scared about it. So we have to be looking for ways that, hey, AI should not be helping us survive, it should be helping us grow and allow us to take the mind-numbing and repetitive tasks away from humans, or the low-value tasks, to where they can focus more of their time on the things that really add value to the firm. And I think that, the level of firm that you mostly serve, Steve, is you have a lot of people that are highly qualified and very intelligent, and they're spending a certain portion of their time doing things that are way below their pay grade, just because that's the nature of the work. And so
Sure.
leaders should be talking to their folks and saying, hey, I want to understanding what they're best at, what we want you to be doing. For example, if we think about football, if you've got Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, you don't want him on kickoff team, right? You don't want him doing, all you want him is throwing the football and scrambling. That's all you want him to do. And so think about positioning these things, and actually not just positioning, but doing the research and understanding what are the things that you're doing that are most draining to you. How can we use AI and automations first to take off the things that you hate doing, that they're low value, that those sorts of things, so you can actually do more of what.
Yeah, I think even in our own industry, I've over the years, a few years ago, started positioning our team. Just the nature of technology has evolved so much, especially post COVID, with the highly distributed user base. That the core of our cybersecurity strategy used to always be around the firewall, how it protected the perimeter, how it locked down people from getting in and protected people going out. But now with all the changes, that single site network is not a very common thing anymore because of the way things have evolved. And now the foundation of security is really around the identity, how you're protecting identity, get into your local environment, your cloud-based apps, all of those kinds of things. So, over the past 5 years, we've kind of had to take our team and change those skills so that those people who are really, really great at firewalls and those kinds of technologies, we can't lose those skills, but we need to be developing elsewhere. And I think organizations need to be thinking about that if they're bringing in AI, whether it's marketing or other things. Not just where will it fit, but just think about what skills do we need to give up and what skills do we need to acquire, because it could be, more skills around, how AI works, or, agentic workflows, or, prompting skills, or, whatever, robotics, there's all kinds of AI out there to whet your appetite. But I think organizational leaders need to be thinking about their specific industry and where it's going to fit, and what's the next place where it can help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would add to that is, don't treat it like it's a magic fix. AI is not a magic fix. Automations are not a magic fix. It's not a magic fix either human level or at the organizational level. And if your signals are off, your connection is off, then AI is just going to make that noise even louder. These tools ultimately don't differentiate you. Your emotional clarity is what's going to differentiate you, because it's a race. It's a tools race right now. So yes, you have to keep up with the tools, but be really careful about speaking to these tools as your differentiation.
Sure.
People are attaching AI to everything now, and frankly, Steve, that scares about as many people as it excites.
Sure.
I live in a world where, on the institutional side, everybody's excited about it, but clients don't always feel that way.
Yeah, whenever people throw AI in there now, for some reason, I can't get this out of my head, but every time I hear someone throw AI into a conversation, I always hear Forrest Gump going, "Magic legs." I don't know why. I just there's no real explanation for it other than my tangential brain. But,
I love it.
Anyway, so after today's diagnosis, we've got a little bit of time together. If our listeners had to tattoo one idea on their business brain that you brought to them today, what would you prescribe as that lasting remedy for them?
Yeah, a couple of things. First off, don't jump to execution too fast. What tools should I use? What should I post? The deeper issue is that you've never identified really what makes you magnetic to the right clients, and that's why your marketing feels like noise.
Yeah, find out where you are before you get to the next spot.
Yes, so start with a signal audit. What do people feel when they hit your site? What impression do your emails, your decks, your bios, what do they actually give? Because you start with that emotional resonance, not just with campaign ideas. Build that magnetism first, then scale it. You can't scale something that's not magnetic, unless you have the ability to just throw money at it. So like I said, money, you get it in front of enough people, it'll work. So, ultimately, I'd say most people aren't losing because of bad service. Some are, but most are losing because their best clients just don't feel while you're different. So if you fix the signal, then growth will follow. So audit that first impression. Honestly ask, would this feel right to me if I didn't know you? Would it feel right to me within a few seconds? Because if it takes me 13 minutes to figure out why I'm connected to you, you don't get 13 minutes. That's expensive, right?
Right.
Don't start with tactics, start with clarity. And remember, if people aren't leaning in emotionally, your pitch isn't going to land.
Awesome. Now my audience, they love prescriptions. So is there a link or a book or something you talked about, something that's free, free or less, we'll take either option, but is there any resource that you can share with the group that you think might be helpful for further learning?
So I actually have a free resource on my website. It's NeuBeFi.com. You can put it in the show notes. I'll
put it in the show notes.
NeuBeFi.com. But there's a free resource there that's a magnetism audit. And you can download that, and it's a questionnaire, and it walks you through, how magnetic is your brand? And that gives you a great starting point.
Awesome. I like it.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to list, or check out that link? That's a good starting point.
Check out that link. There's a few things. I mean, if you're interested in learning about the science of connection, the science of emotional resonance, follow me on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, so on and so forth. I'm also on YouTube, but most of your professional audience is probably on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. So you can put the link there in the show notes. It's Dr. Joshua Wilson. If you're searching for me, put doctor in front of it, DR, because there's 1,000 Joshua Wilsons on there. Check me out there, and I create content almost every day that's designed to help people understand emotional resonance and apply it to the business.
Yeah, that'll help whoever make that decision about you. Just follow it, listen in, and figure it out.
Absolutely.
As for myself, you can reach me at the doctor with doctor spelled out at fulcrumgroup.net. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. Always excited to hear what you thought about the podcast, other potential speakers, topics you'd like to hear about. I love to chat, as you may have figured out. So reach out. We'll figure it out from there. And that wraps up another episode of Talk to the Doc, where we dig into everything about everything twice because we love learning. So look for me on any of the podcast areas. We're also on YouTube and also on social media. That's all I have today. And the doctor is out. Thanks, Josh. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you, sir. Bye.